General Flagg, you found yourself in the middle of an international incident.
Oh, princess.
The United States is in the business of saving the damn world by any means necessary.
What in the holy hell?
These assholes aren't human.
You wanted monsters. You got monsters.
Die, Nazi! He's not a Nazi, GI. Oh, okay.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone, where we love talking about movies and more. I'm your host, Mason Phillips, and we're talking about DC Studios' Creature Commandos. This is the first series, the first project in James Gunn's DC universe. The first official project, anyway. You could say the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker Season 1 are also kind of part of this new DC universe, because there are elements of those projects that carry over, but Creature Commandos is the first solid project that is seriously a part of the new DCU, James Gunn's Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. Before we get any further in this video, I want to ask you guys to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notified when new videos go live on this channel. You guys do that, it always helps me out, and I greatly appreciate it. Now, let's talk about the plot. Creature Commandos follows a group of non-human criminals comprised of an anthropomorphic weasel, a robot, the bride of Frankenstein, a radioactive skeleton, and their human leader as they are tasked with stopping an evil sorceress. All right, so what was good about Creature Commandos? This is one of the most original projects I think I've seen in the comic book medium. It's very James Gunn flavor. It feels a lot like the Suicide Squad, and it feels very closely to Peacemaker. There's a few elements from Peacemaker that carry over. You have Viola Davis back as Amanda Waller, and you have Steve Agee who's back as John Economos. It's carrying over plot points from Peacemaker. The fact that Task Force X has been shut down by the government because Amanda Waller's daughter let out to the news what was going on with Task Force X and Amanda Waller, so that project got shut down. John Economos' leg has been hurt. Of course, that's from the final episode from Peacemaker Season 1. So there's elements from the previous James Gunn projects that have been carrying over. So that's where the muddying of the waters of what's canon to the DCEU and what's canon to the new DCU. It's a little muddy as far as what is in continuity. James Gunn will say that it's anything that's referenced in the new projects, be that Creature Commandos, Superman, or whatever else comes down the line, anything in that regard is considered canon. So not the whole project, like seeing Jason Momoa's Aquaman and Ezra Miller's Flash at the end of Peacemaker. That Justice League scene isn't necessarily canon to what's happening in the rest of the DCU, because the Superman movie is going to contradict that scene directly, and the fact that Jason Momoa is now playing Lobo in the DC universe and not Aquaman, that's also going to contradict. But they also talk about Project Starfish, the fact that Peacemaker killed Rick Flag Jr., that was in the Suicide Squad movie. So there's elements that are carrying over from those James Gunn projects. So if you really want to start the DCU, it kind of starts with the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker Season 1, and then carries over into Creature Commandos. Creature Commandos was actually originally produced for the DC Extended Universe. James Gunn was working on that before he even got the job as CEO of DC Studios with Peter Safran. So before he even got the job he has now, he was already working on this show that was intended to be part of the DCEU. Even when you see characters like, you see Batman show up for a brief second, the silhouette of that Batman is very Ben Affleck-like, so you can see that there was a direction that the show was heading in. For the most part, the show probably didn't have to get touched. It probably wasn't touched. The only thing I think that had a big influence on where they were going to go with the show is how they did the casting. And I thought the actors were really good. They wanted to cast actors that would be good playing these characters in live action, because we're going to get Frank Grillo back as Rick Flag Sr. He played him first here in Creature Commandos. He's going to be showing up again in Superman later this year, and he's also going to be showing up in Peacemaker Season 2 also later this year. So they wanted to cast actors that could also portray these characters in live action, so there would be that continuity carrying over crossover between animation and live action. I think that's a really good move to go in. Marvel's kind of doing that now with What If. Whenever they can get the live action actors in to voice the characters, they're going to try to do that. And so I think that's a really cool move. And again, we talked about the cast. I thought that Frank Grillo really surprised me in this show. He has a certain charisma that I haven't seen from him in past projects. And the character's got some levity to him too. You know, I thought he was going to be this like kind of dark, just this by the numbers soldier. And there's a little bit of levity to him, a little bit of heart to him. He's probably got the most heart out of any of these characters, maybe other than Weasel, which was also surprising that they were able to humanize Weasel. That's something that James Gunn is really good at. He's really good at humanizing characters that you weren't expecting anything out of, be it Weasel, G.I. Robot, The Bride, Eric Frankenstein, Nina Mazursky, all of these characters, you see a human element in these characters that you just don't expect. You know, they're approached as monsters and these characters that just seem like they've got nothing to offer humanity. But James Gunn brings out the humanity in these characters. He brings out humanity in a character that's not even human, like G.I. Robot, the character who's so obsessed with killing Nazis, and that's what he was programmed for. That's all he seeks out to do. His character arc went on a very interesting trajectory, and I'm going to get spoilerish throughout pretty much this entire review, so expect spoilers to be dropped here and there. I'm not going to put up the usual spoiler banner like I do in other videos, so expect spoilers to be dropped. So just warning, if you haven't seen Creature Commandos or if you haven't finished Creature Commandos, I recommend you go do that and then come back to this video. So going forward, there will be spoilers. The way they took certain characters, G.I. Robot, Weasel's episode, I didn't expect Weasel's episode to be one of the best episodes of the entire series. I really like G.I. Robot. He's probably my favorite character of the entire group. That was surprising to me. I wasn't expecting that at all. Weasel, I didn't really care for Weasel in the Suicide Squad, and then here comes James Gunn bringing this character back to us again in Creature Commandos, humanizing a character who may not even be human. I don't know what Weasel is. They don't really clarify that. His name that's given to him is John Doe, so he doesn't even have an identity unto himself. The really cool direction that they go in. The Bride's episode was super twisted. Eric Frankenstein's episode, super twisted. It's got a little bit of a mean spirit that isn't always my favorite, but it comes in a lot of James Gunn properties, but I don't think it hampered the project in any way. I actually think it was needed in some aspects with these characters, because these are very dark characters. All of them have very dark pasts, so there's bound to be elements of that mean spirit in these characters, especially with Dr. Phosphorus. There was a lot of that in his episode, a lot of heavy stuff in all of the characters' episodes. Nina Mazursky's episode, her entire child upbringing, and then what happens to her at the end when she finally dies at the hands of the princess. Of all the characters, she was the one that really did nothing wrong. There was no reason that she even should have been in prison in the first place. She was the most innocent of all of these characters, and then unfortunately she just met her bitter end. Kind of shows you the direction of the show. James Gunn said there will be deaths that just happen because they happened. There won't be as much sentimentality in Creature Commandos like there was in projects like Guardians of the Galaxy, or even Peacemaker, that is even less sentimental than Guardians of the Galaxy, but it still has some heart in there too. There's heart in Creature Commandos, but in a different way. So I really like this. I thought the animation style was on point. It's very close to a lot of the animation style that we see in a lot of the DC animated movies, but I think the sound was on point. So what really brought this project to an even greater level is the voice talent behind the characters, it's the writing in the show, it's the direction of the show, the music, the sound quality, the sound editing. There's just a heightened level of production here that kind of fits more in line with a high budget TV show or high budget movie. There's an element here, an element of production that's just a little higher than your average animated cartoon. It's not just this average animated cartoon. I mean, this is a very hard R project, so don't bring the kids to this one. This is not for the kids. This is for adults. This is a very mature property. So before you go into Creature Commandos, if you were about to show this to anybody on the younger side, I would go very cautiously on that decision before you go further. It's a very mature project. A lot of very mature elements in here, but I think overall the show was quite well done. And it's an interesting start to the new DC universe. You know, it's not one that I would expect. This isn't the direction I thought they would go in. Superman does seem like the logical beginning of the new DC universe, so we're getting that with Superman later in July. But Creature Commandos is kind of the soft beginning, this transition from the DCEU into the DC universe. I thought that was an interesting way to go with all of this. I do have one more thing in the good section of this, and that is the music. I actually thought the music was quite well done. I love that intro sequence for Creature Commandos. James Gunn is really good at creating great intro sequences, memorable intro sequences. He did that with Peacemaker. I really like that Peacemaker intro sequence. I think that's one of the most original intro sequences I have seen in a very long time. And then of course we've got the one here for Creature Commandos. I love that poppin' music that comes in right at the beginning of the credits when they start rolling on each episode. I think the music was just on point, fit with every episode. Every time it came in, it didn't feel distracting in any way. James Gunn's, for the most part, pretty good about when to drop that needle, when to drop in that musical cue, be it in Guardians of the Galaxy, Suicide Squad, or Peacemaker, or here in Creature Commandos. Now, one more thing that is also really good, I do have one more thing. This is very James Gunn. If you love James Gunn properties, especially Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, you're getting more of that here in Creature Commandos. That could be a good thing for you if you love that James Gunn stuff. If you don't love that James Gunn stuff, I don't know if this is really the show for you. It's for a very particular type of audience. I recommend you check it out anyway to at least get that first glimpse of the new DC universe. Let's go ahead and move on to the mixed section of Creature Commandos. All right, so what was mixed about Creature Commandos? I really only have one thing to touch on, and that is I felt that the show could have used 1 or 2 more episodes. The thing with Creature Commandos is pretty much every episode is character focused on one specific member of the Creature Commandos. I could have used one episode that was focused more solely on Rick Flag Sr. Maybe that was the first episode, but I didn't really go into like his backstory. A lot of these episodes went into the backstory of these characters, kind of gave you that origin story for each character, and then went on further as the plot progressed. So you have this overarching plot, but you also have these very character-specific episodes that focus on their origin, focus on their character arc and their trajectory as a character. I appreciated that, but I could have used maybe 1 or 2 more episodes that weren't specifically character-focused, but were maybe more mission-focused, more on the overarching plot. I could have used 1, maybe 2 more episodes. The plot overall, I thought, was pretty good. A little weak. I think the plot could have been a little stronger. It's a little basic. I think the plot for Peacemaker Season 1 was better than this. I think the plot for the Suicide Squad was better than this. So I think this is one of the weaker James Gunn projects, but it doesn't mean that it was bad. I just think it was a little weak. Could have used maybe 1 or 2 more episodes to flesh out the overarching story. That's all I got in the mix. Let's go ahead and move on to the bad section. All right, so what was bad about Creature Commandos? It's that James Gunn mean streak. I know that he warned us up front that there wasn't going to be as much sentimentality in this show. Projects like this, it's harder for them to speak to me. The entire Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy has a mean streak in it, but it's also met with sentimentality. It's met with heart. There's more hope in those projects. There wasn't really a lot of hope in Creature Commandos. I mean, when the whole thing ends, I don't really think that there was a win at the end of this. You don't always have to have that. I'm a fan of certain shows, like Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad's one of my favorite shows where there's not much winning that happens in that other than the fact that at the end of the series, Jesse Pinkman makes it out of all of that. He wins, he gets away. So there was a hope and there was a win there. Guardians of the Galaxy, each film had a hope and a win, and even the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker Season 1, there was a hope and a win. So there's not really that here in Creature Commandos. I don't know what good came out of this mission. I know there's going to be a second season of Creature Commandos, so this is one of those where, because it's a television show and not a movie, we have to kind of see how this whole project, whole story is going to progress. So my feelings on this show might change a little bit more as we get further on into the series. I have to wait when the second season comes out. Again, I did enjoy the show overall. There's just a few things. This is more of a minor nitpick for me than anything. I just wish that there was a little bit more hope and a little bit more of a bright spot at the end of this. But then again, the show is going to be progressing and evolving as it goes on. So this isn't the end for it. If this was the end and this is all we got, I would be judging this a lot more harshly than I am. There's more to it. There's going to be more to come. There's going to be a second season. So we'll just have to wait and see when we get that second season finally. Don't know when that's releasing, but I am looking forward to that. I'll tell you that up front. I am looking forward to seeing the second season of Creature Commandos. That's all I got for you in the bad section. Let's move on to my final thoughts. I did enjoy this show. Could have used 1 or 2 more episodes. I wish there was a little bit more hope and not so much, downtrodden, just darkness over the entire thing. Doesn't even feel like there was a true win at the end of the day. Yes, the bride did get the princess at the end. She did need to go. She was doing some very dark stuff, but we also lost Nina Mazursky. Yeah, there's a new team formed at the end of Creature Commandos. The bride is the leader of this new team that will also consist of King Shark, who's also back from the Suicide Squad. There's another connection to an old James Gunn property. But I think that the show could have used some better pacing. That's the biggest gripe I have with it, is I think it could have used better pacing. It could have used a little bit more heart in there. It's that dark sentimentality that there's like no sentiment to this whole show. It just doesn't quite work for me. But I can get behind dark shows, like you'll ask me, it's like, how did you feel about Penguin last year? I love the Penguin. Thought it was one of the best things I watched in 2024. But then you get something like Creature Commandos that I don't know why it doesn't quite work for me the same way that other projects do. I can't really put it into words why it doesn't quite work for me the same way. Again, I didn't think the show was bad, but I also think it could have been a little stronger than it actually was. So if I'm going to give this whole show a rating, it's got to be a 3.5 out of 5 or a B- on the letter scale. Not one of the best things that I've seen, but not one of the worst things I've seen either. There's a lot of potential in this project, and it did give me some good insight into what is to come in the new DC universe. For the most part, I'm looking forward to the new DC universe. Now, when it comes to the beginning of this new DC universe, I'm really putting all my hope in Superman. That's where I'm really going to be getting a good look. We're all really going to be getting a much better look look at what's to come with this new DC universe. And I think that movie, rather than Creature Commandos, there is going to be a lot of heart in there. There is going to be a lot of that hope in there. And that's what I'm looking forward to more than I am here in Creature Commandos. And again, I don't mind dark material. I don't mind dark projects. Again, I like shows like The Penguin. I like shows like Breaking Bad. Batman's my all-time favorite comic book character, so I love the Dark Knight trilogy. You know, I like those dark character pieces, but Creature Commandos just didn't land for me the same way that other projects like this have in the past. Even other James Gunn projects I've enjoyed more than Creature Commandos that also kind of leaned in this direction, but there was just that little bit of hope, that little bit more of a win factor at the end that I just didn't get here with Creature Commandos. And there was better pacing. I think the pacing could have been a little bit better here in Creature Commandos than what we actually ended up getting at the end of the day. So go down in the comment section and let me know what you thought of Creature Commandos. Did you think this was a great start for the DC universe? Did you think we could have used a better start for the new DC universe? Go down in the comment section and let me know what you thought of this show, guys. Before you go, remember to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you get notified when new videos go live on this channel. When you guys do that, it always helps me out. I greatly appreciate it. Hope you all have an awesome and a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video.